Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish, where we learn how to generate revenue before your book is ever published. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and I want to invite you guys to go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz and find out where your skill set lies and if you have some gaps you need to close in generating revenue before your book is published. You can find that at www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. So today's guest is Bonnie, I can't even talk today, Barry Moniak. Did I say that right, Barry?
You did.
Oh, yay! Barry is a fear expert who gets leaders and sales professionals to deal with tough challenges the way black diamond skiers approach formidable ski slopes. A core trait which sets fearless leaders apart is a developed inclination to befriend fear, transforming it into a more beneficial kind of energy. Then they infuse this atypical approach to fear into those who look to them for leadership, thereby developing fearless teams. 30 years ago, Barry founded End in Mind, a consulting practice focused on developing more functional, personal, interpersonal, and organizational relationships with fear. Barry has presented various topics dealing with fear over the last 15 years. His empathetic, intuitional nature adds flavor and depth of understanding to his approach. Through entertaining and interactive on-stage presentations, he speaks to real issues around fear. Barry believes that in order to succeed in business and in life, we must treat people and organizations as integrated human beings, living entities, and he assesses areas where individuals and teams experience fear. He evaluates their responses, reactions, and even denials of fear, and then empowers them to face, embrace, and befriend those fears. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you for having me.
This is really exciting. So what kind of skiing do you do? Not that that's part of this show, but I know you're a ski instructor. So,
well, all mountain. I love the groomed cruisers. I love getting off piste and going through some nice, yummy powder. It's whatever I'm feeling or wherever my mind and body agree is a good place for me to be on that day.
That's so cool. So are you one of those crazy people who jumps out of helicopters in Utah?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nothing radical, nothing hairy, scary. My thing is that most things that we would do require some kind of momentum. A bicycle, you got to push the pedals. Roller skates, you got to push the skates. With skiing, you literally don't have to do anything except go along for the ride. Gravity provides the momentum. All you do is the steering and the brakes. That's why people fall in love with skiing, because it affords us that ability to move through space almost effortlessly.
Okay, so I know you said you'd teach me how to ski, but I have to tell you my big fear is jumping out of the helicopter.
Well, I think we should leave that for maybe next lifetime.
Are you saying I'm too old to do that? Whoa.
No,
okay,
I'm saying
this show's over. No.
People who do really extreme things, especially in skiing, there's a high risk factor in skiing. That just goes with the territory. When you start skiing really steep terrain, when you jump out of helicopters, do glaciers, the risk factor goes up significantly. So when I'm working with people, I'm wanting to see where's your comfort zone and are we putting a smile on your face? Now, can we move that up ever so gradually so that you are skiing a little bit more advanced terrain without having to go through that risk challenge thing? I can do this. I can do this. If someone's really having to psych themselves into that, they're in over their head. That's when something bad's going to happen.
Okay, and that's me, like all the time. So, why would I want to befriend my fear?
Well, people have this idea that fear is like a demon, and people almost talk to it like it's some kind of a demonic force. Get thee behind me, fear. Fear is an energy. It's a force of human nature. And we all experience it to some degree, and we all experience it differently. So my fear and your fear are not going to be exactly the same. When someone is resisting the fear, what they're really resisting is the information that fear is trying to present to us. There's two types of fear. Natural fear, you're about to, move in front of a fast car. You're about to fall off a cliff, where one more step and that's it, game over. That fear is protecting us. And we really want to wrap our arms around it and say, thank you for saving my butt. If it wasn't for you, I might have done something really stupid. The projected fear, where there may not be imminent danger, but we're acting like as if something terrible could happen, that's where fear is giving us the information or the feedback that we lack the adequate mindset or skill set to do what it is we're attempting to do. So rather than freaking out and running away or denying it, if we just said, okay, do I need to learn something more? Do I need to develop a better skill? Then we can come back and have a very different relationship with it. And that's what I discovered in skiing. The people who were smiling and giddy all day had befriended the fear of gravity. Me and the rest of us, we were still wrestling with it, going, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. Well, if I went back to a flat level parking lot, there's no more fear, but there's no more momentum. Now I need to push something or be pulled by something in order to move.
So how do we deny fear? That sounds so like, how do you do that?
Well, that's something that we can thank our social, societal history. We have been culturally indoctrinated that fear is weakness. And if you admit fear, now you're a fool in addition to being weak. So we don't admit our fears in any arena. You just don't hear people talk about that. We suck it up, we deny it, we act like, well, it just doesn't happen to people like me.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite sayings, suck it up, buttercup. Okay. So how does fear affect one's awareness?
Well, for I don't know how long now, it's probably been quite a while, we've had this saying that knowledge is power. And I think that made a lot of sense for a long, long time. In today's world, I believe awareness is power. Just knowing about something doesn't mean that you have the wherewithal or the expertise to use that knowledge wisely. And when you study self-improvement and spiritual awakening, the goal at the top of the mountain is awareness. Mm-hmm. We want to become more aware of who we are, what's going on around us. And fear inhibits and constricts our awareness. We literally go into more of a tunnel vision. So things that I know or abilities that I have, I don't have access to those things when I'm in a state of fear. When I have befriended the fear, now my awareness can open back up and I can utilize my knowledge and my skill to serve me in a more functional way.
So is that kind of like when you're in a situation and you freak out and then you take a few deep breaths and kind of move through it? Is it sort of like that?
Yeah, exactly. The old, hey, let's take a time out and look at this from another perspective. Let me get back to you in just a little bit, and we'll re-examine what we're talking about. Then all of a sudden you have a different perspective. Oh, you're talking about something that I don't know. In business leaders get really weird when something's being talked about that they don't feel like they know or understand. And they will not admit that. Rather than saying, hey, Barry, could you explain that to me? Mr. Banker, Mr. Attorney, when we go to the doctor, I mean, there's so many scenarios where if we just, can you explain that to me in a way that I can understand? Because I'm the one who needs to make an intelligent decision here, but we don't do that.
So do we in those situations like try to fake it till we make it, or?
Exactly. And that's where the more we go into denial, the less it haunts us that I really don't know what I'm doing, or I really don't know what's going to happen next, or what's around the corner.
Interesting. Okay.
Ignorance is bliss.
Oh, I like that one though. That's one of my favorites. That's not okay.
Well, if we're, at the beach or, hiking a wonderful mountain trail, sure. If we're in a personal relationship dilemma or a business quandary, maybe not so much.
Okay. So, what's that company where no fear is their tagline? I can't think of what it is, but this question reminds me of, does being fearless mean there is no fear?
Again, that's our idea, that if I'm fearless, I experience no fear. And yet when you talk to people that we would think they don't experience fear, a firefighter running into a flame, a soldier, moving forward into the line of fire, a surgeon cutting somebody open where they know their life is literally in my hands, they will tell you, yes, there is a fear, and they are managing that fear because they're bringing their A game. Do I know what I'm doing, and have I developed the skill set to make it so? That's the problem, is we're not owning what we don't know or what we haven't developed.
Excuse me. So when you're identifying fears, there are, like we talk about in business, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of, I don't know, the bathroom on a particular day, whatever that fear is. How do you really identify what that fear is? Because don't some fears kind of mask other fears? Was that a really deep question?
Absolutely. Yes. Fears hide behind other fears, or we will project something that makes more sense to us or that we can wrap our mind around. I don't like you. Well, why don't I like you? Because I'm afraid you see something about me that I don't want you to see. Oh, so the liking you really is a moot point. That's not even what's going on. What's going on is I'm concerned that you know something about me that I don't want you to know, or that you know something about me that I'm not willing to admit to myself. Okay. These kinds of scenarios go on in the workplace all the time, where we're bouncing off of each other like pinballs in a pinball machine, rather than really addressing, well, what is it really that I'm reacting to? And that's where the face, embrace, and befriend fear formula came. Can I just look at it and see what is it? Before I react to it, what is it? Then can I embrace it? Well, is it working for me or against me? And if it's working against me, what do I need to do to get it to work for me? Well, now, just like we don't become friends because we say so, we become friends because we've gotten to know and appreciate and respect one another. Then we can say, oh yeah, Juliet's my friend. Well, why? Well, because of the way we communicate with one another and the way we treat one another and the modicum of respect we have for one another. It's the same thing with fear. If we treated fear like any other relationship, if we got to that place where it's like, okay, I'm comfortable now skiing down a mountain that used to terrify me, immobilize me, it's because I've befriended those forces. Mm-hmm. I've also gotten wise enough to know this is still over my head, and I don't think this is a good idea right now.
Okay. All right. So why don't we talk about fear more openly? Why don't I admit to you that I'm afraid of things, like in casual conversation?
Well, the answer to that is we need to flip the script. If you're my boss and I admit to you, Juliet, this thing that I'm working on is really scaring me, I'm afraid I won't get it right? Do you look at me like, wow, that is so cool that he opened up and was honest with me? Or are you saying, well, what kind of an employee are you?
Or damn, do I have to clean that up?
Yeah, maybe I need to find someone else to replace you. If it's a relationship and I want you to like me, I want you to be impressed. And I say, Juliet, I am so nervous to walk over here and talk to you. You're going to go like, well, then just keep walking. Right? It's like, no, but if oh, well, let me show you who I am and what I'm all about. And Mr. Confidence over here, we have been trained and conditioned. Oh, I like that. Well, is that confidence genuine or is it masking? I'm trembling inside. I just don't want you to know that.
Very good. So, is fear controlling some aspect of what wants to be accomplished? Because I see in my own practice with people, like they're really gung ho, and then they'll turn around and just sabotage themselves, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And when we say they sabotage themselves, I don't think that their conscious mind said, oh, I'm going to flip this switch and, and ruin this. It's that some other aspect of them is starting to freak out. And like you said, there's these layers of fear. Oh, things are starting to go well. And if I take a couple more steps in the direction I'm going, something's going to show up. And that's where the subconscious mind can send up this little warning flare. You really don't want to go there. That's not going to be your happy place. And all of a sudden I bring in this fear, or I create something, a sickness, an illness, or whatever. Oh, now I don't have to do that. That's really the self-sabotage mechanism. So in working with people, again, to let them know that identifying that that's what's going on within you is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. Most people don't have the courage to take a look inside and say, who am I really and how am I showing up?
Mm-hmm.
In business, that is never discussed.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about, can I impress you? If I can impress you, then you'll hire me or you'll work with me or. But if I show you my vulnerability, I mean, if I came into your organization and said, Juliet, I'm a business consultant, and I just want to let you know, here's my doubts and my insecurities and the things that I'm not so sure about. You're going, how do I get this guy out of here? Because there's no way I'm going to write him a check.
Right. So people almost express these things in a more, I don't know if the right word's passive aggressive or subtle, because one thing that we see over and over in the coaching industry, and I talk about this with my own clients all the time, are those people who sign up, they pay, and then they are never present to the process.
Right.
Is that subconscious? Is it what is that? Is that fear?
I think you hit it on the head. The conscious mind says, yes, I want to do this. This will be so good for me. I want to start exercising. I want to lose weight. I'm going to, read this book. I'm going to develop this new skill. And then the subconscious mind starts filtering up going, no, you're not. That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we are so disconnected from our subconscious mind because it scares us. How could there be a part of me that's messing with me, my plan, my progress that I don't even know about?
Yeah, that is kind of a scary, when you hear the excuses people make, like, I can't make it to a 9:00 class. I don't get up. And it's like, you just paid me a whole bunch of money to have you in this class. To
Right.
me, it seems crazy at times, the things that people don't do. Now, what about those clients? Because I want to help some of my coaching clients out here, because we all see these people. What about the people who just turn out to be uncoachable? What is that all about? Is that part of that fear?
Yes. When this goes down a little bit deeper rabbit hole in terms of self-identity. I have an idea of who I am, and when I'm around different people or in situations, then I get that collective reflection back to me of who I am, or at least who I think they think I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of us don't want to ask that question. Juliet, would you tell me who you really think I am? No, I will say, no, Juliet probably thinks I'm this or this. Well, when we decide to change, then what happens to our circles of influence around us that know us for who we've been for months, years, decades? And my perception of it is, it's like in the Star Wars movie where those ships could put a tractor beam on a smaller ship and so that it couldn't get away. People put a tractor beam on us of who they think that we are, how they perceive us to be. And so we're trying so hard to change, but our environment is not conducive to supporting us to change. So that's one of the things that I try to talk to clients about. Talking about change is all well and good. I mean, it lights me up like nothing. But being willing to do the work that the change is going to set into motion. Talk to me about your relationships. Well, what does my husband or wife have to do with this? What does my extended family have to do with it? Everything, because at some point, if they're not supportive of this new you, this new version of you, they're stronger because there's more of them and it's been around longer. They will pull you right back to who you've always been. And we've seen those people that you haven't seen in 10, 15, 20 years. And it's like, oh my goodness, they're exactly the same. They may look older, but they as a person have not changed. Then you look at someone else and it's like, you look really familiar. Oh, don't you remember we were friends 20 years ago? Well, what happened to you? Oh, well, I grew and I changed and I evolved. Well, if you looked at their circle of influence, there was some support. Sometimes people need to just go be by themselves for a while. And that's a really tough medicine. I'm not saying cut off your family and friends forever, but what about for some extended period to just go be in an environment around people who do support you,
right,
to face your fears and become a better version. Now go back and reintroduce yourself to your family and friends, because now they can't pull you back the way they did before.
Well, they not only can't, there's that, I guess the best word for it is sort of like a triangulation of it all too, because you're breaking away. And I actually had to do this when I was about 30. I had to give up a group of friends, and it was exactly as you described. I saw them again 10 years later and I'm like, oh my gosh, that could have been me. They're exactly the same. And, it's a weird feeling because you feel guilty and happy all at the same time. Like, oh my gosh, I get to congratulate myself for my growth, but I had to leave them behind and we had such a great bond. But a lot of times when you're making this change without making that cutoff, you get a lot of pushback from those people. Is that because we always say it gets better, it gets worse before it gets better. And that's part of that, is learning to set boundaries with them.
Well, if we think about it, I mean, this gets into the physics of what actually happens. You and I have known each other for 20, 30 years. We're really good friends. Now, I start to change, and that change is in some realm of personal growth, development, becoming more aware. And initially, maybe intellectually, you're saying, oh, that's great. I really support you in doing that. Now I start taking steps and I'm actually becoming that new, different version. Well, that becomes a reflection on you. Are you taking those steps? Are you willing to face, embrace, and befriend what I have? If not, that's where you're going to start giving pushback. And that pushback is not going to come in the form of, Barry, what you're doing is scaring me. It's making me have to face my fear. It's, Barry, I don't think that's so good for you. As your friend, let me tell you, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah. So, since I shared my fear of jumping out of a helicopter, although I'm sure I have ones that are more relevant to my life since I don't jump out of helicopters, what's one that you're personally dealing with?
Oh, I've got a handful. Being a fear expert, I think people have this idea that, oh, well, you've dealt with them all, and they must be in all neat, comfortable little places. No, I'm 68. I'm going to be 69 years old in a few months. I have a fear of getting old and becoming feeble or infirm. And so sometimes that freaks me out. And then I go through my own little process. Well, what am I doing to avert that? Well, okay, I do yoga. I stretch daily. I exercise. I do breathing exercises. I watch my diet. I do everything I can to sleep well. I read to feed my mind. I go on adventures to keep me young. I like being around young people because it makes me feel younger. All of a sudden, it's like, well, okay, that fear became the impetus for me to do a whole lot of cool things. Well, that creates a different relationship in my mind and body towards getting old. There's other things, writing my book. I've got so much to say, but how do I put it into a format that people would actually appreciate it? Because I don't want them to just read my babble of everything I thought was interesting. If it doesn't have some usable value for them, then why did I even write this? I don't need to just tell people my story for them to know. It wants to make a difference. I've got some fear around that. Mm-hmm. So I have to start writing down my stories to go, well, that was a really good story. And there are some learnable moments in that story. Okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? Then I start looking at it going, oh, this book is going to be a bunch of stories that can provide learnable scenarios for other people. Oh, okay. That feels better.
Good. So where can we find you if we decide that we want to overcome our fears someday?
Well, the easiest way is endinmind.com. That's the website, and it's got all my contact information there. I'm on most of the social media channels under End in Mind. And yeah, that's where I help people figure out where they're at, where they're going, and how do they plan on getting there.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, this was my pleasure. I loved it.